All right, we are back, episode 3 of the Write Up. Welcome, everyone. I'm Amber Parks, the director of Writing with Design, and we also have Tabitha Martin on with us tonight. And our episode is all about the prompt problem. What do we even want students to write about with the prompts that we give them? So it's a big topic. We're excited to have you on tonight to talk about prompts. And yeah, this is a new time, right, Tabitha? Like we're doing
Yes, we
7
are.
o'clock time.
Well, we played a little game last week with testing out 7 o'clock, and we had so many friends join us, and we were like, "This is the time, apparently." So
Yeah, this is it. This is it. So I just have to coffee up, which I have, and now I switch to tea so I can not stay up all night. But we're going to, yeah, try this later time, especially as the school year gets going and everyone's schedules are as full as they get in education, whether you're a teacher or administrator or parent. There's just so much going on. So we wanted to find a time that more people could join. But it's
yes,
also just the two of us tonight because the rest of our colleagues are out in the world doing amazing things. So 2 are at a conference, 1 is moving for a new job. So new updates will be coming from them. But yeah, just you and me tonight. Lots of
that is
pressure.
right.
Well, we do have a lot of exciting updates. So I want to jump into that. And the first is about you. So I'm going to take that one. And that is to say that you are now full time with Writing with
Yes.
Design. Woo!
Honestly, dreams come true. Dreams come true.
Yeah, we've known each other, gosh, for what, almost like 3 years now, I think.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's crazy. So and just yeah, your expertise in writing and just your enthusiasm is something that I just am so excited to see what it brings to Writing with Design. So first and foremost, biggest announcement of the night is that Tabitha is full-time with Writing with Design and will be not
Yes.
only woohoo doing curriculum design and the skill focused activities, which we'll talk about, but then also coming and being a part of trainings and being a part of that school level implementation. So many exciting things on that front. So I can't wait. And I can't wait to have a travel buddy too. It's going to be wonderful. So
Yes. No, I'm so excited.
yeah. And then the next big announcement, I'm going to let you take that one if I can make my slides work tonight.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is amazing. So we have been literally working on this like
Here it is.
just nonstop. And that is our student writer guides. We have amped these bad boys up so much, and we are just so excited to share these with schools. So we have this is a sneak peek of our K through second student guide, and like it just is so adorable. Like who wouldn't love to just open this page and just see all these cute little things? So we do have 3 different student writer guides. We've got K through 2, 3 through 5, and 6 through 12. So this is a sneak peek of our 3 through 5. You'll notice that all of our excerpts are on sophisticated word choice, which is like one of my favorite categories because it's looking literally at almost every single type or every single part of speech and like taking the pieces of that and like making your writing better. So this is oh, sorry. I went a little into depth, but this is on like adjectives and nouns, and it just gives like students so many options and ideas for words to choose. And then in our 6 through 12 guide, we're also looking at sophisticated word choice in our little sneak peek. And this is on verbs. And, we don't typically think of verbs as being like strong or weak, but gosh, there is so many layers of really weak verbs to like super, super, super strong verbs. And it really does change the whole meaning of a sentence. So we are so excited to share these. We have got some that are going to the printer literally like as we speak.
Yes.
And we're finishing up our 6 through 12. But we are so, so, so excited for schools to get these, for students to have them in their hands. Like this is just so exciting. So
Yeah, and it's a brand new version. The last one that we printed was or the last version of it was 2018 or 2019. So there's just been so much that we've learned that Tabitha has brought into Writing with Design. And so it's all jam packed in there. So these are the student writer guides for all the different grade level bands. We love to have those bigger bands of grades in each of these, just so that teachers and students don't feel like they're kind of pigeonholed into one particular resource. And yet they're incredibly inclusive. So we have resources in each of them that apply to the whole span of writing that we have in all of the grade levels. So can't wait to, as Tabitha said, to see teachers take these and students get into them and just really improve their writing. So
It's
that's
like, oh, sorry, sidebar. It's like really helped us catch up on our pop culture references because so many of like our proper nouns. It's just been
that's
really
great.
fun to see what all the cool words are these days.
Yes, yes. And just to go back for a second, because I just can't not talk about it. These two weak verbs. So I love to share that, with students in lower grades, they love can and can jump and can play and can write. They love to put can in their writing, and also like and love. I lovingly joke that first graders will like and love you to death. And what we want is for them to replace those weaker verbs with much stronger ones, with much more action verbs. So I just want to point that out, even as a quick tip while you're listening, that this is something that we just want to see all students, and especially those in lower grades, not develop that habit of the like and love and the cans, because it just weakens their writing. So that's the
And
neat thing too.
it's a hard habit to break when
It
they
is.
get in school. So
Yeah, right. Yeah, you can speak to that for sure. So that's one huge exciting, or second huge exciting announcement. And then the third one, skill focus
yes, is
activities.
our yes, SFAs, skills focused activities. So these are activities that are for teachers and students to use. They're broken down into bite-sized chunks. Initial like the plan is that you would use them for a week. But we have really just completely taken these to like the next level. So this is a sneak pre. I try to say peek and preview at the same time. Sneak peek of an activity on. We've got our coordinating conjunctions up there, and the activities are. This is actually not an activity about conjunctions. This is just a little mini lesson about conjunctions within the lesson on using conjunctions in your sentences. And then we also have, in addition to our SFAs, we have created student workbook pages. And I am so excited about these student workbook pages because they follow along with the teacher slides almost verbatim. They have guided notes, they have activities for students to do, and a lot of them have extension activities that students can do at the end of each day, at the end of week. There's so many amazing things in these student pages, for students to fill their binder up, which is so many different activities that completely and 100% align with all of our domains within, or not the writing domains, the criteria within the writing domains.
Yes. That's why you were reading my mind. I was going to go to that slide. These are the lucky 13 that Hillary referred to last week, that, this is what we divide writing into. So we get away from those ambiguous rubric scores, or just like you need to add more detail. Like, what in the world does that mean? So our SFAs that we are working so hard this summer to redesign, to get ready for schools, to have a whole new library this fall, they fall under all 13 of these. So you'll find activities on sentences on prompt, which is what we're going to talk about tonight. Like, how do you write to a prompt and what makes a great prompt? So there's SFAs for students on that. And then tonight we'll help you all in the teacher world and the parent world, to understand like what makes a great prompt. But you can see we cover everything in the content world, like what's the heart and soul of the writing, and then also the conventions, because let's face it, they do matter, right? Spelling is not the most important part of writing, and we don't want kids to say, "Oh, I'm a terrible writer because I can't spell." We don't want them to equate conventions with being a good writer, but at the same time, conventions are what make writing readable, and we certainly want them to know what are the punctuation rules, how many symbols of punctuation are there, and how do you use them. By the way, there's 17 symbols of punctuation. A little fun trivia piece for you. And we go through like, how do you use all 17, both external and internal punctuation symbols. So just little things like that just demystify what it takes to be a good writer in both of these columns, because when you put them together, then students are unstoppable. And so the skill focus activities are just going to take each of these and make them manageable, so teachers aren't feeling like, oh, my students aren't great writers. What do I do? Okay, this week I'm going to work on closings. I can work on closings with my students for 5 days and I will see an improvement, and then I can switch to something else. So it lets it writing instruction be so manageable. So
Can I
that's
just toot? I just need to toot Amber's horn. Sorry, I kind of stopped there. That was an awkward pause. I just need to toot Amber's horn here because these criteria are truly like what won me over to writing with design. Because when I started working with Amber, initially I was grading essays for her. And so I got really familiar with the rubric. And one of the things I love is through these criteria and the rubrics is students aren't like they're not losing significant, huge amounts of points when they're not meeting all of these. Like if they're really good at writing sentences on prompt, but they're not so great at transitional words, like they're getting that feedback that they need and still able to score well. So like this goes so in depth, and this we could honestly talk about this for like a whole other episode, but
yeah, totally.
I won't go into it too much.
At least another episode for sure. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, it's SFAs, and then it's tied into the rubrics, which lets me tell I reached a whole new level of existence this week because Natalie Wexler liked my comment about her Substack that she wrote about giving good feedback, and it's and this is what I talked about, that like you can't give vague feedback, and then B, you can't give feedback on what you haven't taught. And so between the SFAs where you're teaching and the rubrics where you're giving scores for the exact same criteria, you are setting up your students to be so successful with not only understanding what's expected, but then understanding why they got the score that they got. And that's how you give quality feedback in writing. And then the third point is that it makes it manageable for teachers, right? Like you don't have to give feedback on all 13 every time. You can give feedback on capitalization and sophisticated word choice and let that be it, because, you know, Bachelor in Paradise is coming on and you cannot miss it. And so you just give feedback on those 2 areas to all your students. So it just lets, I'm totally letting it one of my dirty secrets out. But it lets you give feedback on, you know, just a couple key areas for your students, which is so helpful for them, and it makes it manageable for teachers. So much there that we can talk about with rubrics, but I really want to get into our topic tonight of prompts and the problem with prompts. And you know, they are really where writing starts, right? You have to have clear and quality prompts for your students to write to, or you've lost them from go, right? And we touched on this last week. That was such a big episode where we talked about why writing programs fail, and we talked about the 5 big reasons. And you know, that vagueness of the prompts was one of them. And so it prompted us to come in tonight and really talk about prompts and why we need to make sure that, as you know, you're getting ready for the school year and planning writing, that you're thinking about, what am I actually asking my students to write? And you know, a lot of writing programs have really terrible prompts in them. They're vague, they're confusing, and they made us think about all these pictures of bad design. So
we've all too much fun looking for these,
right?
Yeah, we had way too much fun looking for these terrible photos. But, you know, bad prompts can really, much like this picture, they can really spiral out of control. They have a massive ripple effect. And, you know, bad prompts lead to, like, I mean, it's just like, you know, a web that keeps spinning or keeps going out and out and out. Because, you know, if you have a bad prompt, you know, with nothing, when it's not clear, usually the rubric isn't either. And, you know, and when students don't know how to start, they certainly do not know how to finish. And it's usually just a mess from beginning to end. And like Amber said, I mean, a lot of really big writing companies, or not even writing companies, curriculum companies that are publishing ELA curriculum that is in hundreds of thousands of schools, have the most vague writing prompts with no clear instruction, not only for the students, but the teachers as well. Like they don't know how to even teach the writing because the prompt is literally like a sentence.
Right. You literally don't feel like you're going up or down, right? Like I love that button. Like which one corresponds? Let's just press them both and see if we get there. But it's, you know, it's prompts like, tell me about your summer break, which I know is going to be asked in so many classrooms coming up in T minus 30 days, right? Some schools start this month even, which is crazy. But that prompt, just tell about your summer break, is so vague. Is it an informational piece? Are you wanting a story? Where do I go? What do I write about with that? It really feels just like that elevator set of buttons, or even that stairwell. And then I have to get to this last slide because this is probably my favorite bad
There's just
designs, right?
so much to unpack on this page. But one thing about, especially like if the prompt, tell me about your summer. I know we've all been there and we've all given that prompt because it's easy, right? You're trying to fill up time. But you have to remember that every time you're giving a prompt to your students, they are associating that writing piece, even if it's just the first day back to school, with what writing is going to look like in your classroom the rest of the year. And when their prompt on the first or second day of school is that vague and there aren't any clear, like, this is what I should be writing and these are the expectations, then it kind of sets an uneven stage for your writing the rest of the school year.
Yeah. So let's not have prompts that feel like those urinals, right? Like they're uncomfortable. There's just not an easy way to move around them, right? Like we want to get away from prompts that are confusing and awkward, because it just, I hope that image of those urinals stays with all of us, because that is really what I feel when I see those bad prompts. And I think this also is really hinting at like redefining what the word prompt, or kind of even how we respond to the idea of a prompt, because that's not a bad word. And I know working with teachers all over the country, sometimes I run into this feeling of like, oh, I don't want to stifle my students' creativity. And I feel like we've touched on that in every episode. Like when you give students structure and choice, that's when they unlock their voice. So the clearer you are in prompts, the better you're letting your students unlock that confidence and creativity. You're not stifling it.
Yeah.
So prompts are not a bad word. We don't need free write time, especially if our students are not strong writers. And I might ruffle some feathers with that, but I am not a fan of just giving students free range and saying, write what you want to write about, or just this vague, like, oh, we just studied rocks, now write about it. They need more pointed direction, because prompts are everywhere, right? Like if you send me an email, Tabitha, and you're like, hey, Amber, what do you think about these slides, or this SFA on capitalization? And I write you back and I give you a recipe for the macaroni and cheese my daughter eats. Like,
oh, okay, I would love that recipe.
Amazing. I mean, you've had our macaroni muffins; they're amazing. But you'd probably give me a call, right? And be like, hey, did you not understand my email? Like, I was asking about this SFA. And so there's prompts everywhere, right? Whether it's in work, whether it's in school, and just in everyday life, right? Text messages to our family, even. Those are all prompts. And so that is something that also I want us to redefine as a nation, as educators, that prompt-based writing is a good thing. It is not a bad thing.
Yeah, and especially the way that like students crave structure is the same. It goes the same for writing. Like I am an outrageously creative person. Like I thrive on being able to create, but with the right prompt, my creativity still shows. But the more freedom that they have in a vague prompt, like they don't know where to focus their creativity. So honestly, you're not like, if you're afraid of stifling it, you're actually, I would even venture to say, creating a bigger problem, because they don't know where to funnel their creativity into.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think it bears even talking about now that like that can be an issue even for our most gifted writers. Like if it's too wide open, they have a huge risk of going off prompt, veering off prompt, because they just don't know how to wrangle in all their ideas. And that is a perfect segue into just asking this question, which we asked last week too. So if you remember, how many bonus points, but how many writing types are there? And this is academic writing. We're talking K-12 education here. Like how many writing types do students need to have exposure to? Do they need to understand to really be able to tackle any prompt that they face in academia? But then also just writing in terms of thinking and being what's the word I'm looking for? Just a citizen who can contribute. I know there's a word there for me, but but how many writing types are there? There's 33. And this, I think, gets at the heart of one of the biggest pieces that to help us design better prompts is to really kind of funnel down into what type of writing are you wanting students to do when you give them a prompt, right? When you just say, write about your summer, as we talked about earlier, is that a narrative? Is that informational? I'm sure students could even take an argumentative spin on that or an opinion spin, right? Like it's my favorite time of year or it's not. So it doesn't give them any clarity even at the domain level. But then even from there, and this is one of the beautiful things that writing with design offers, is we go in much more specifically to the subtype. So we don't just stop at informational, but we say, are we comparing? Are we sequencing? Are we comparing and sequencing, right? Like all of these are sub writing types. And we will link in the show notes a resource that has definitions for all of these, because they might be ones you've come across. Some are going to be more familiar than others. But we really work on distilling down into the most specific writing type we can when we are designing prompts, because that allows for the most clarity for students. So all of these, need to have writing prompts about them, not all in the same school year by any means, but we do want to make sure that students are getting exposure to all of these because they matter.
And definitely don't try to get all of these in one school year, because you'll be like, oh, I don't know, what to do. Yeah, don't. There's yeah.
But this, this really leads us into kind of what happens when prompts are clear, right? And we have 3 tips for helping to write really strong prompts, because it's hard. It's intimidating as a teacher to think like, okay, I know these prompts are bad in the curriculum that I have, right? And I want writing to have meaning in my classroom, but like, how do I go from that to actually having something on the screen or the board that my students can then discuss and write from? And so we kind of came up with the 3 top tips for writing strong prompts. And when we use these, it's like flipping on a switch, right? Like there's a clear direction, like where we need to go. And there's a lot more between a prompt and a finished product, and we'll talk all about that. But this is that step 1. And that's why we wanted to talk about it tonight, is to really start to bring it to your attention of like, what do I need to do to make this prompt clearer? Or do I need to scrap it and completely write a new one?
Yeah, and definitely use the sources that you have, the things that your students are reading. And I think one thing a lot of ELA teachers do that kind of pigeonholes them into these vague prompts is they focus solely on ELA stuff. Like, let's write a book report. And listen, this is a hill I will die on. I just do not believe in book reports. I think they're absolutely useless. But, what about a book, or what about reading a book can your students like focus on? But even look outside of ELA. What are they learning in science? What are they learning in social studies? Like, and you can do this even as a middle school and high school teacher, because, even if you're not teaching 3rd grade and have your kids all day, when I was teaching in the classroom, I was always like, what are you guys learning in science? I would talk to their science teachers. I wanted to know what their curriculum was going on. What can we do to match up? So, there's so many things that your students are learning that you can tap into.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why you get bonus points, right? If you're pulling from your curriculum, and your curriculum, we really should even change that to like students' curriculum, right? Like, what are they learning? What are they reading about? Because it makes writing not feel like something separate. And yes, it takes time to write, but it should be, and it should be part of science, and it should be part of social studies time, and it should be part of ELA and math. It should not be this, oh, well, I get a 30-minute writing block on Thursdays. That's bogus. Writing is inseparable from learning. And when you want your students to be learning, you need to be finding ways to bring in writing and clear prompts to make it worth their time. So base your prompts on sources. You don't need to have it be this random thing that happens on Thursdays for 30 minutes. Secondly, is that clarifying piece of what domain. Is it informational? Is it argumentative? Is it narrative? It's important to clearly state that. And some states, I can hear people already saying to me, like, some states are so ambiguous with their prompts at the end of the year on their writing test. Yes, but we don't need to emulate that sense of confusion for our students all year long. We can work on decoding those particularly very poorly written prompts, but most of the time we need to have clarity around the prompts. We don't teach our students anything by having ambiguous prompts. We need to teach them how to write effectively and to certain prompts, and then we can show them how they can strategize when the prompt isn't clear. So there is absolute power and purpose in giving students very clear, you are writing this type of writing in this prompt. And even beyond that, the subtype, right? If it's a narrative, should it be imaginative? Should it be a fable? Like, what should it be within that? So those domains and types are really critical. And then the last one, when you think about the wording of your prompt, look at your verbs. That should also give them clarity of what the thinking should be to help them with their writing. So if they're defining, if they're telling a story, if they're arguing, if they're comparing, all of those verb choices are also keywords that we want students to lock into to understand, okay, now I know what my next step is. Now I know how I need to think about the topic to help me get my writing put together.
So many prompts rely on just the word write as the verb. Write about this, and there
Yeah.
needs to be these really strong verbs, because it gives students that focus. Okay, this is what I'm working on, and not, it really funnels that focus and makes it not so vague.
Yeah, I love that. So we're going to take a look at some very specific prompts. We're going to go back to the ones that we said at the beginning, kind of those really bad design, the dual urinal feeling prompts. Like if you just tell your students, write an informational report about rocks, it's just, where do you go? How do you
I said that in my head. Where do you go? What do I do?
What do you do? Yeah. So we're going to walk through these three parts, like base the prompt on sources and curriculum. So let's say that they've got a science text and a diagram of the rock cycle. And you don't necessarily have to be the science teacher to be doing this, because you're bringing in the writing process and bringing in some cross-curricular connections. Let's say if you're ELA, right? But let's say you are the science teacher. Yes, they've got their text, they've got their diagram. That's going to be what you want them to utilize, so that they realize, okay, already I have this curriculum, I have these sources to pull from. And that is such a comfort for students. It really is like a security blanket to say, okay, this is what I get to pull from to do my writing. Second is stating the domain, right? So we're going to specifically say, in this science informational writing task, or in this informational task, writing prompt, right? Give them that domain of writing. And then lastly, with the strong verbs, let's tie it into thought processes. So this one in particular, we changed out write about to define what a rock is and explain the three main types of rocks: igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. Include details about how each type forms. So I love that, that language there tells them exactly what to do. I got to define what a rock is. So I have to have a definition. I got to talk about the three main types. And then I need to talk about how they each form. So I now know three key parts of my writing, and that allows me to then break it down into those three and think about how I'm going to approach them. So it's a game changer to do these three steps.
I think too, you mentioned security blanket, which made me think that I think a lot of teachers want their prompts to be like one sentence. And I think you can't be worried about the length of your prompt. In fact, the longer, well, I don't want to say the longer, the better, but don't be worried that you're giving your students too many verbs to focus on, because like that gives them so much direction, and they really do want to know where they're supposed to go with their writing.
Yeah. So look at the difference, right? Write an informational report about rocks changes into use the scientific text and diagram of the rock cycle to define what a rock is and explain the three types, include details and examples to show how each type forms. We all know exactly what to do. Maybe we don't remember those three types of rocks at the moment, but we can certainly go look that information up, right? We can figure out what we need. We can problem solve now. We can talk about or think about what we know and what we need to add a little bit more to. And so it just completely changes everything from here on out. The ripple effect of great prompts is huge. It impacts everything downstream when it comes to instruction, when it comes to the revision process, and then certainly when it comes to scoring and giving feedback to students. So
yeah, I really want to point out. I really want to point out just like the strong academic vocabulary in this prompt as well, because it would be really easy for us to make this prompt like use your science text and diagram of a rock to define what it is and explain the types. But you'll notice that like this prompt clearly states the three types are igneous, sedimentary. Oh God, it's been a minute since I've been in elementary
That was
science,
it,
obviously.
elementary, yeah.
Elementary and metamorphic, because obviously if your students are learning this, they know the three types, but this could
Mhm.
not make the writing prompt any clearer when it is written in there. And honestly, when your prompts look like this, it gives your kids a really good checklist of things. Okay, I've included I'm not even gonna try it. Igneous. I don't know why I can't say that word today. But it gives them a checklist of, oh, I did include this. I did do this. So, definitely err on the side of providing more information than less.
Yes, exactly. All right, let's take this one that please, if we can just across the country stop doing this, tell me about your summer break prompt. I will feel like my life has been worth living. So tell me about your summer break. Lou, just what do you
No.
do? Where do you go? So this one feels like, oh, I don't want to stifle their, whatever they want to tell me about their summer. No, anchor it with something. Let's read a short
Mhm.
story like The Marble Champ, Gary Soto, right? It's a great short story, talks about, just perseverance and learning something new, and students can relate to that whether or not they did or they didn't. They can have that as a jumping off point. So we love, even for narratives, to have it be based in text. It doesn't always have to be another piece of literature, right? They're writing a story, it doesn't have to be based in literature. You can have informational text about like how middle schoolers spend their summertime, right? So it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be like the domain of the sources doesn't have to match the domain that you're having students write, but in this case it does.
Yeah.
But great little short story that you can find actually on Common Lit. So it's available for anyone to pull and use. If you're thinking, oh, I like this idea, you can use this exactly with your students.
Mhm.
And then let's clearly state the domain, right? Because we talked about earlier, tell me about your summer break. You could really go into all three domains. And
Mhm.
I know, just as a very analytical student, these prompts made me start to sweat. And what does my teacher want? What direction should I go? How much should I include? What do I need to talk about? What are they looking for? I didn't know what the next steps were. And so that is why we are on a mission in Writing with Design, to really give that
Yeah.
clarity. So now, write a personal narrative. I want to know about your summer, right? One moment from your summer.
Yeah.
And that just helps students take a deep breath and know exactly where to go.
Also, if you have a prompt that kind of starts with this really vague, tell me about, and this is totally my background in Title I schools coming out, but a lot of times we tend to think of what our most creative kids are going to write, but you really have to think about those kids that don't exhibit a whole lot of creativity, because these kinds of prompts stress them out, especially if you have kids that like literally didn't do anything over their summer. They're like, I don't know what to write about. Like I stayed at home and played video games all day, so
Yeah.
it's really important to think about that kind of socioeconomic dynamic. I hate to bring that into the, but I mean it is, it's important to put a focus on that.
Right, it's so true. And we don't want students to think that narratives are only about going to Disney or to the beach or those kind of quintessential experiences that a lot of students in our country and around the world can't relate to. So,
Mhm.
this one is about learning how to play marbles. So, something simple and maybe not generationally like applicable or right as much as it was, a while back, but still the idea of learning something over the summer, that's something that students can think about on a very small scale, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be something massive. And so, yeah, I love to say, like, we want stories to find the extraordinary and the ordinary, right? Like,
Yeah.
write about brushing your teeth, write about, the first day of summer break and what did you learn about yourself that day. It can be just much more everyday moments, and that's what
Mhm.
actually makes the best stories. It's not the Disney's, although we love Disney, but it's
We
not
do
about
love
going
it.
to Disney. I know
Yeah, but
you
this
love
prompt,
Disney, so I really
when
should.
you read this prompt, tell me about your summer break. I mean, the first thing you think of is, okay, what was the biggest thing I did?
Mhm.
And
Ooh, I
that's
love that.
not
Yeah.
always the case for some kids. So,
Right. Yeah,
um,
yeah, and we want everyone to realize they've got something to say, and one of my mentors
absolutely.
said, "If you can put a mirror under a student's nose and it fogs up, they have something to write about." And I just love that. So, yeah, so we're clearly saying write a personal narrative, and then the last is the verbs, right? Tell a
Mhm.
story, describe, reflect. All of those words are going to help them really pull in what you're looking for. You want them to connect to the text that they read, but then but in the context of their story. And that actually is a very hard skill to do. We'll talk about writing text-based narratives in a future episode, but we don't want it to be any kind of direct quotation, right? It needs to be this connection to Lupe, the main character in Marble Champ. So that's what we're pulling in there with that reflect and describe. And so as we get to the final revised prompt, not tell me about your summer break, but read the short story, The Marble Champ by Gary Soto. In the story, Lupe works hard over summer break to master something new and surprises herself in the process. Now write a personal narrative about one moment from your own summer. And then those 4 bullet points are just giving students even more specific kind of pieces to pull in. So to your point, Tabitha, like give them that specificity. You want to have a one moment story, right? Something that challenged you or that where you experienced something unforgettable. Vivid details, include your thoughts and feelings, and also make a reference. So we to the Marble Champ, we want to give students all these bullet points so that they can feel like they know exactly what is being asked of them.
And no moment is too small. There is no writing topic that is too small. I've been working on our 6 through 12 writer guide, and I spent, or no, this was actually third through fifth. On Sunday, I spent 5 hours writing about a bus ride to give examples. And there is honestly, like, there is no topic that is too small for students to write about. There is so many different aspects, especially when you look at our Lucky 13, there's so many different ways that you can write about these things.
Yeah. All right. So use these prompts. We don't have an argumentative. We just did informational and narrative tonight, but we'll in a future episode certainly talk about argumentative prompts in terms of reworking it. But these same steps apply to that. And so what we want to kind of move into now is like, okay, so now you see kind of the 3 key things or tips about how to write a great prompt. And so as you are now writing great prompts, now what do you do with them? Like, what do you do with your students? So this next little segment is just helping us kind of break down prompts to help students analyze and think about what do I need to do. And actually, this one's argumentative. So check, check, check. We did all 3 tonight. Okay. And I love this analogy because it really is at the heart of why we want to make sure students know how to analyze a prompt, because whether the prompt is ambiguous or not, still there's a chance for students to write off prompts. So yes, we want clear prompts, but it's not a full safe here where they may still not kind of go off in their own little tangent. And really, our most gifted students and gifted writers are often the ones who are most at risk of doing this. So we just want to make sure that all students know how to analyze prompts so that they, are not baking a cake when the assignment was to make lasagna, right? Because that is such a jarring thing when you think you're eating one thing and it's something else, right? So it's that same kind of thing. Like, it was clearly an argumentative prompt and they ended up writing a story, and it's like, no, you can't do that. And I know in a lot of districts where we work, that's a fear, especially for GT students, because if they write off prompt, if any student writes off prompt, that is an automatic 0 on the state writing test. Doesn't matter the grade, doesn't matter the state. And, we're not here to only focus on state testing and by any means, but it is a nice side effect when students do well on that. And that's one of the things that in Writing with Design schools, we see that their test scores go up for a lot of reasons. But one of the key areas that we look at is how many students are writing off prompt and getting scores of 0. And that number drops because students know how to analyze. So no more, while we love cake, but if the assignment was lasagna, we need to make a lasagna, right?
And like Amber said, some of our most gifted writers are the ones that stray the most. Like, they have the most amazing, like, vivid imagery, and their transitions are on point. But, they were supposed to write about pollination, and all they're writing about is how the bees live in a hive, right? Like, they've got something that is kind of connected, but they've gone totally off. And you definitely see that straying more in honestly in those gifted writers than not.
Yeah. All right. So here are 3 questions. 3 is like the magic number tonight. Questions to ponder. We want students to think about these 3 questions as they're looking at prompts. So we have a prompt on the right. Should efforts to eradicate kudzu, for those of you not from the South, kudzu in the United States be increased, or should alternative uses for the plant be explored instead? Support your argument with evidence from the provided articles. So we need to now figure out, okay, what do we do? This is a really well worded prompt. We've got sources, we've got really strong indication of what domain to be in, and we've got all that kind of clear thinking that we want students to do. So number 1, what are the keywords and phrases in the prompt? 2, what must I do to fully answer the prompt? And then 3, what type or types of writing will address the prompt? And so what we have, actually, these are the 2 articles, which are 2 that we offer, and we will link these for you all if you would like to do this writing with your students. There are 2 2 articles that are in the like 3rd through 6th grade range-ish in terms of readability. I know it's a big swath, but they're certainly relevant and digestible within those grade levels, especially if they're read aloud in the lower grades. And then from there, like, here's what we want to kind of see students walk through and think about. So as they look at that prompt, should efforts to eradicate kudzu in the United States be increased, or should alternative uses for the plant be explored instead? Support your argument with evidence from the provided articles. These bubbles are showing like what we want that discussion to be in class, where you would put up on the board or students would come up with these and really kind of think word by word, phrase by phrase, what do I need to do? Well, I very clearly know I got to incorporate evidence, right? It tells me in that last sentence even that I have to pull in evidence into my writing from those 2 articles. I also know that it's argumentative, right? It's not informational and it's not a narrative. And there's research that just came out not just came out, but was talked about this week, and I'm going to find it. But it was talking about the non-examples and how critical that is for students, that if they can know something well enough to say what it's not, or to give like errors or mistakes, that's a really great indication of how deeply they understand it. So to be able to say it's argumentative and it's not this, that's a really, really fantastic sign. Also, they have to choose a side, right? They got to go, I want kudzu to be eradicated, or I want it to have other uses, right? So you want to take some, Tabitha?
Yeah, sorry, I got really distracted for a minute. Yes, and it's really important for this one, like, they have to choose a side and prove it, and that's a really big thing in argumentative, is that they, recognize that it's not just writing about the topic. I totally blacked out, Amber, and I forgot
Well, I
which
think
one.
that's really it. I think you're touching on this
Well,
other 2 bubbles.
no, because you know what? I was thinking one thing, especially I think with your like the like when your students are older, like like 4th, 5th grade, in middle school, high school, obviously. I think a really great way to build a prompt is to have your students help you do this. To take their prompt, because I'm looking at this graphic organizer, and we are huge fans of graphic organizers and Mind Designs at Writing with Design. And I'm just thinking, like, one way to really get so much buy-in from your students and understanding is like going through these questions with your students and having them kind of tell you what they're supposed to do, because I think that creates a lot of clarity for them as well.
Yeah. And those Mind Designs at the bottom, if you're writing with design school, those make total sense. If you're not, then just know what we're doing here is we're taking the content, we're taking our thoughts, we're taking our arguments, our reasons, our evidence, and we're putting it in these different designs that are tied to thought processes. Because, as you know, Steve Graham, my crush, he says, writing is thinking on paper. And so these are tied to thought processes. They're helping students think about the causes, the effects, kind of what the details are, and then also just ways to classify the information, which helps us organize our essay. So whether it's those particular designs or not, the big thing here is just thinking about how am I going to now kind of organize my writing, the visuals to help me kind of think through the content and organize it, and really getting all of that other analysis in place. So I know what it is, I know what it isn't, I know what I need to do, and now let me get into the articles. Let me really figure out what I need to do, because that's the cool thing, right? Like all of this can be done before they read one line of the very first article, and that just gives them such clarity, right? It literally is like that flashlight being shined on the path forward. Where do I need to go? What do I need to do? So
Well,
oh, go ahead.
No, well, and looking at these questions and having students do this with you, I know we're not, our goal is to not write to the test, but this does give them a really good strategy to analyze and break down the prompts when they are in the state test. Like they're not just looking at, one sentence, like you're teaching them how to almost create a strong prompt out of a weak prompt themselves, like while you're also doing it.
Yeah, exactly. They know what their options are when they get to those really ambiguous prompts, right? So we're gonna finish up by just sharing one of our
Graham quote. Who knew?
Oh my gosh, of course it's Graham, right? I mean, he's gonna be a guest on at some point. I mean, I'm putting this out there. I don't have any any date by any means, but I will have to put on extra deodorant on but he's going to be a guest on here at some point. But just to say, where we're coming from, what we're sharing is all tied in what works in writing. This is the research. This is the best recommendations, and we're taking that and making it so doable for teachers. So just want to wrap up by saying that high impact writing instruction includes clear goals, which is what prompts are about, modeled strategies, and then certainly guided practice. And that really does hinge on kind of what's the prompt, where do I go with the task that I've been assigned and given for writing. And so clear prompts really are that foundational piece.
Oh, I was just going to say they set the stage and then you said foundation. It's just like brain melt.
Yes. Well, that, I mean, Graham says it best. There's no other way to say it. So we're just so excited to get to share more and more of the how-to with you with writing, because we know, as not that I want summer to end, but school year will be here, and we want to just make sure that you as teachers have the skill sets and the strategies and the resources to really do writing differently this year and feel supported, to know what it takes to write impressive prompts. So we hope that tonight you've not only seen what not to do, but also what to do when it comes to prompts and your students' writing, because it will make such a difference.
Yes, for sure.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. Happy Tuesday night. I didn't yawn one time, so
way to go. Hopefully your tea won't keep you up. I just drank a big old can of Coke Zero because caffeine does not affect people with ADHD that way. So
see, yeah, that's
I'll hit my second wind in an hour. So
well, I know what you'll be working on then. Lots of good writing prompts, right? All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night. See you next week.